Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. Today, we're going to be reacting again and to another Linus Tech Tips video. I put a GPU in the M2 Mac Pro. Alright, so if you're wondering, wait, it's a computer, shouldn't you be able to put a GPU in it? Not the M2 and the M1 Mac Pros. The M2 and the M2 Mac Pro and the M1 Mac, M2 and M1 family, I should say. Any version, Pro, Max, M2 Max, M2 Pro, M2 Ultra, M1, same thing. They have integrated GPUs into the one die. So there's a CPU and a GPU tied together in the same core, in the same chip basically, and they share RAM, they share everything. So being able to do this should not be possible. However, we're going to see how Linus does it, because if there's a will, there's a way. Shout out LTT screwdriver. Yeah. All right, let's get straight into this. It's a 17-minute video, so let's go.
7,000.
Oh!
And that's just for the base model of
the
new Mac Pro. I mean, in fairness, Apple has been true to their word here. They have both completed the transition to Apple Silicon.
They have.
They said they would, and they've offered professionals who are invested in the Mac Pro form
Cheese grater.
some continuity in a product
Cheese grater.
line that has, for 20 years, been in constant.
Oh, cheese grater. It's the cheese grater.
But I can't help but feel like this is a classic case of malicious compliance, where they're bringing this thing back to life once again, only to prove their point that it should have stayed dead. And I'm not the only one. With the same class of hardware as the Mac Studio that costs a little over half as much, the Mac Pro has had a hard time convincing folks that it has any reason to exist, which won't prevent us from running some interesting experiments on its animated corpse. For example, Apple said you can't put a GPU in it,
but they have PCIe lanes in it.
Anyway, just to see what would happen.
There's PCIe slots in it.
Through a battery of tests to search for any reason for this computer to.
There isn't one.
We also
I can tell you that now.
our sponsor.
There really isn't a reason.
App stores have millions of apps, but if I know you, you only want the good stuff. That's why I like you. Well, $9.99 a month gets you access to SetApp's more than 230 carefully curated, premium feature-enabled Mac and iOS apps. It's so you. Try it free for 7 days at the link below.
All right.
Like the new M2 Ultra version of the Mac Studio that launched alongside it, the new Mac Pro is externally essentially unchanged from its predecessor. There's only a couple of subtle differences around that.
Power.
Where the previous gen Intel Mac Pro had its graphics cards mounted at the bottom of the case.
Okay.
The power supply and the dual 10-gig LAN ports.
Now there's
the
not
HDMI
even.
ports for the M2 Ultra Mac
Now there's
Pro
not.
are
Now
up
there's
at
not
the
a
top,
GPU cell.
just under the healthy bank of 6 Thunderbolt 4 ports to go along with the 2 on the top. That total of 8 is less than the maximum on the old Intel Mac Pro, but hey, at least you get all 8 regardless of the hardware configuration.
Yep.
Once again then, it's all about what's on the inside. Powering the new Mac Pro is Apple's top-tier M2 Ultra SoC, which is basically 2 M2 Max SoCs glued together with Apple's Ultra Fusion interconnect, which allows them to operate as one. It's cool, but it happens to be the exact same chip down to the maxed out 76 core GPU that's in our new Mac Studio. The only difference is that, unlike our Studio, which we set up with 128 gigs of RAM, our Mac Pro is equipped with the maximum 192 gigabytes of unified memory, which sounds like a lot, because it is, but you gotta consider the customer here. One of the biggest drawbacks to the Intel Mac Pros was that some CPU configurations were limited to only 768 gigabytes of system memory. Which, again, sounds like a lot, because it is, but was also a legitimate reason for some professional users to spring for the higher-end chips that could address twice as much. So what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to folks who are dealing with complex simulations, machine learning, or any large data set, Apple no longer has any option for them at any price.
No.
Now, this smaller memory pool does have the benefit of being unified, meaning that Apple's GPU can address
Yeah.
more memory than any PC GPU, even ones that cost as much as this entire machine.
Yeah.
But we are talking about some pretty specialized workloads here that, would benefit from a ton of GPU memory that comes at the direct cost of having basically no system memory.
Yeah.
So we're finding ourselves asking, if the system configuration is identical to the Studio,
What's the
and in
point?
some ways
What's
worse
the
than
point?
the old Intel model, what is the point? of the
Exactly.
new
What's
Mac
the
Pro?
point?
What is all this cooling for?
Yeah.
We can answer that
Cheese grate.
with benchmarks. A quick note before we begin. Apple's product page pits the new Mac Pro against the previous gen, both baseline and fully kitted out.
Okay.
Which is a 4-year-old machine that started for $1,000 less than this one. But,
Yeah.
credit to Apple, it's still a far better frame of reference than their Studio comparisons were. Now, we don't have either a base model or a fully kitted out Intel Mac Pro, so our testing is going to focus on current gen hardware, including a PC
Okay.
bench with a Core i9 13900K and an RTX 4090. Starting with Octa,
All right.
the Mac Studio is exactly as fast as the Mac Pro and costs $3,000 less. Not a great start,
No.
and Redshift doesn't give us much to celebrate
No.
unless you consider 1 second a massive win over a machine that is already substantially more expensive than the PC bench that is obliterating it. Blender 2 shows the Mac Pro's GPU
Yeah.
pushing mostly the same performance on lighter renders, but Gooseberry sees an 8-second gap between the two machines, suggesting that extended GPU loads could benefit from the extra cooling at its disposal. I mean, they don't benefit enough to justify Apple's refusal to allow their users to install more powerful
Yeah.
accelerators like the RTX 4090, and our PC bench,
Yeah, the
at a
PC
lower
destroyed.
price, manages to beat both of them. In our mixed 4K, 8K HDR timeline in DaVinci Resolve, we ran into that same bug that cropped up in our Mac Studio review that prevents us from comparing these two units. But what we can at least do here is see the
Yeah.
performance that the M2 Ultra is supposed to have, regardless of which machine it's installed in. Internally, we've investigated this bug a fair bit, and our best guess right now is that whatever heuristics Apple is using to determine power states and fan speeds is preventing our Studio from achieving max performance. The SSDs are nearly identical between the two machines, with both of them dramatically outperforming the encoding speed, meaning that they will never be a bottleneck. We did discover, though, the Mac Pro's SSD seems to have a minor advantage in 4K reads, so
All right.
Mac Pro. And another point for the Mac Pro is in our Chromium compile, where it shaved just over 2 minutes off of the Mac Studio's time, which sounds really impressive until you realize that that works out to about a 4% performance improvement. But
Yeah.
hey, it does at least show, again, that the additional cooling may be making a difference. When we move to synthetics, however, everything kind of falls apart again. Performance Test has the Pro and the Studio
Ooh.
at about the same performance level, and Geekbench gives the Pro only a 1 to 2% lead in the GPU and CPU tests, respectively. Cinebench surprisingly shows the Pro gain about a 7%
All right.
lead over the Studio.
All right. But
which
the
is especially
PC
odd
is still
considering
way
the
better.
renderer that R23 uses is still Intel optimized. But hey, it's something. And something else is Blender's CPU renderer, which might not be super relevant to most people, but here
The
is
Studio
one more
destroyed.
synthetic test that sees real gains over the Mac Studio, with performance more closely matching the PC bench in some scenes. Perhaps the Pro's CPU cores are able to more aggressively turbo, or maybe the massive cooler is preventing the system from throttling when the Studio
Yeah.
otherwise would. To test that theory, we set up our combined CPU and
Alright.
GPU stress test and ran it at room temperature where, oh, looky here. While the GPU clocks are roughly the same throughout the run between our two Macs, it seems that the Mac Studio allows its CPU clocks to drop down before the fans even get a chance to fully ramp up. That throttle point is visible right here when we look at the temperatures.
Okay.
For comparison, here's the more gradual ramp on the Mac Pro without the throttling hump. Curiously though, the fans didn't kick in for either system until about the 4-minute mark of this load.
All right.
So the Mac Pro's ample cooling system seems to be almost purely for show. And given that at room temperature, the Mac Studio's fans never approach their maximum 3500 RPM, it's pretty clear that with an aggressive fan curve, a Mac Studio owner should be able to reach the same level of performance as a Mac Pro owner. There's no additional special sauce.
That's not good.
And all while saving enough to buy 150 of the new mystery water bottles at lttstore.com. As expected then, lowering our ambient temperature to 10 degrees yielded no change in performance, and the Mac Pro's fans barely spun. And at 35 degrees, same story, except the fans finally broke 1,000 RPM, making the Mac Pro the perfect machine for running heavy loads super quietly in a really hot environment.
Okay.
Sort of, actually. I'm not quite sure how this works, given their nearly identical performance.
Yeah.
But the smaller Studio draws just a third as much power at idle, meaning that the Pro will actually kick more heat out into your room. And the Pro also reaches a higher peak power consumption at 356 watts. How much of this extra draw is from the SoC versus the extra boards and fans? We can't say that for sure, but what we can say for sure is that both machines are substantially less power hungry than our PC. Both idle
for sure.
And at full bore. The Core i9-13900K and the RTX 4090 alone can draw upwards of 600 to 700 watts when both of them are on full tilt. So, the Studio offers the same performance with a smaller footprint and even less power draw. Surely there must be something the Mac Pro does that the Mac Studio can't?
No.
Right?
No.
Cracking open the chassis reveals
yes,
a lot.
but no.
A lot of empty space, that is. The Intel Mac Pro had 8 PCI Express Gen 3 slots, usually with some expansion cards in them, while the M2 model features a total of 7 PCI Express Gen 4 slots, which sounds like not much of a downgrade, but it's more than you would think. While 6 of the slots are full length, only the bottom 2 are wired up for the full 16 lanes, with the next 4 limited to half the total bandwidth at 8 lanes.
8 lanes.
And the slot that's normally occupied by the Apple I/O card halved again to a mere 4 lanes. Meaning that should you choose to use one of your Thunderbolt ports as a DisplayPort output and rip that card out and replace it with something else, your options would be a little limited. Well, more limited. We're going to get to that later. First,
Can't put a GPU
on
in
the
it.
subject of Thunderbolt ports, you might think that you could remove that card too and maybe get another internal expansion slot, but you can't. The design is proprietary. There's no key like a PCI Express slot would have, and the power is supplied on the edge card connector in a shrunk down interpretation of Apple's one-off proprietary MPX connector for graphics cards. This enables sufficient power delivery without the use of internal cables. It really does look pretty on the inside. Now, because MPX is officially gone now, these 3 miniature cable connections then are the only way to get a total of 300 watts of additional power if you need them for your expansion cards. Not all expansion cards need that, of course, especially if you're not installing any GPUs, but this arrangement means that expansion cards, like the 4-bay MPX hard drive module that Promise used to sell, are no longer compatible with the new version of the Mac Pro. That leaves hard drive expansion to just the upper chamber, where a sold separately 2-drive bay can be fitted that makes use of the connectors just above the I/O cards. Good gravy, is there ever a lot of empty space in here? Turning the computer around reveals that the shrouded
There's nothing.
RAM slots
There's nothing
are
you need up there.
still here from the previous model, complete with easy open locks.
But
Except
you can't do anything with them. That's
instead
nothing.
of RAM, we get some heat sinks.
It's your SSD spot now.
But wait! Ooh, that's where the SSD slots are now. All 2 of them.
Yeah.
But unlike the SSDs
They're the
for the Mac Studio, which are bare flash modules, Apple does in fact still allow users to upgrade these. So that's one major advantage over the Studio. That is, assuming that you don't just kit out your Studio from the factory with all the money you saved by not being a chump and buying a Mac Pro. The other major advantage is back with those PCI Express slots. So let's talk a little bit about what we got working in here. To get the obvious out of the way first, the Radeon 5700 XT that did work fine in an Intel Mac Pro was a no-go here. It wouldn't output anything, and while it is detected in macOS actually, which is farther than I expected to get, it shows that it doesn't have a driver. Of course, that is what Apple said would happen. They no longer offer support for GPUs, even for AMD ones. So here's all the other cards we tested. And we
Okay.
did find some surprises. What wasn't surprising
Game
is
capture.
the biggest issue by far is driver support. Companies like Blackmagic have large professional Mac user bases, and their products
Yeah.
worked without much ado. But others like Elgato and AverMedia, perhaps rightly, feel that there's a larger Mac market for external capture dongles than there is for
Yeah.
internal cards. It was surprising to see the Mellanox 100 gig Ethernet card that we grabbed just pick up and run just like that. I mean, I would
Okay.
have half expected Apple to remove the driver to spite NVIDIA, who acquired Mellanox in 2019. Unsurprisingly then, our Apex Storage X21 SSD carrier card didn't work in very
Yeah.
spectacular fashion. But then along came the Honey Badger. Honey Badger don't give a crap. Honey Badger does what it wants, and it wants to work. Not only did Liquid's M.2 card manage to make the SSDs show up in system
Woo!
information, but we
that-
were even able to use disk utility to create a RAID array on it.
What the heck?
Though, for some reason known only to Apple, they are registered as external drives. I mean, hey,
I think
at least
pausing.
we can install SSDs in the slots.
Yeah.
Yay! And so between this and the 100 gig NIC, you know, if the dual
10
onboard
gigs
10
don't
gig
work.
NICs are not enough for some reason, we might have found some of the only expansion cards that really make more sense inside the Mac Pro than in one of the 6 Thunderbolt enclosures that you could buy for the difference in price and install your expansion cards in with the Mac Studio. Oh,
Yeah.
there is another card that pros might want to use, Avid's HDX. It's $500 and we have no use for it, so we didn't buy one, but apparently a driver
audio
does
thing,
exist for these cards,
I think.
and it does work on Apple Silicon. It just requires you to relax the startup security settings on your Mac, which should be fine, but isn't ideal. The more I look at this thing then, the more I'm coming to appreciate the Mac Studio, I guess. As much as we ragged on that machine for not living up to Apple's hype and for not liking the way that they marketed it,
Yeah.
it's safe to say that it's more than enough computer for 90% of the people who were looking for a Mac Pro, and hey, at least it doesn't cost another $3,000.
Oh,
and
that's.
to
I
do
think that's the biggest hit on it.
almost nothing to address the other 10% of users.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than that this thing is an abject failure and an absolute slap in the face to Apple's professional users, yet again. Does anyone want to buy a lightly used M2 Ultra Mac Pro that got scratched while we were sliding it out of the thermal chamber?
Ooh.
No? How about a mention in a video? Anyone want to buy a mention in a video? How about you, Guardio?
All right. There's the. Yeah. All right. Long story short, it's not worth it. Like, it's really not worth it to put it in the Mac Pro. It's not worth it. Mac Studio, whichever one it is, it's not worth it. For it, like, you can't. You get very limited use out of the PCIe lanes in it. So it's really just open air. Like, I mean, if they sold some sort of like glass panel and you could like put stuff on the inside and make it look cool, that'd be okay, but they don't. So yeah. I'm gonna end this here. What a waste of time. Not for me, for Apple to make and sell that. What a waste of time and money if you buy that. No offense. Do not buy that. It's not worth it. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. Peace out, everyone.